Today we are going to discuss model selection and cross-validation techniques. If you go through the whole steps of model building life cycle, machine learning model building life cycle, it starts with setting up the goals, background and objective, setting up the objective, set the goals, what is the project plan, etc., etc. That is step one. Step two is data exploration. Collect the data, explore the data, select, look at the summary, find out the outliers, finding the missing values, etc., etc. Data exploration, validation is the second step, along with the data collection. Third step is preparing the data for analysis, cleaning the data. You will find the issues. If you have outliers, how do you clean them? If you have missing values, how do you clean them? If you have 2% outliers, what will be your treatment? If you have 10% outliers, what will be your treatment? If you have 50% outliers, what will be your treatment? Prepare the data for analysis. After that, do the model building. To solve this problem, do you require classification or do you require regression technique? To solve this problem, do you require a segmentation technique? Select the model, right model. Is it regression? Is it logistician? Is it decision trees that I have to use? Build the model, fine tune the model. What is the right depth for the decision trees? Select the features if you are doing logistic regression, linear regression. That is the next step. The fifth step is validating the model. We have seen already few validation measure methodologies. For validating a regression model, we use R-square. For validating a logistic regression decision tree type of classification models, we use confusion matrix and accuracy, isn't it? Now there are a couple of more validation measures. That is what we are going to discuss here. The reason why we have introduced this new session as a model validation, cross validation, why we are having a dedicated session, because in the interviews we have observed that a lot of companies, they are testing the skill set on what different type of validation measures that you know. Okay, so this session is going to be very helpful from the point of view of interviews as well. One of the most common interview question will be, tell me some of the validation measures. You have built the model, how do you validate the model? Tell me a couple of them. Okay, so if we go through this section, you will be able to understand some of the validation measures. Luckily, since we have some good knowledge about model building and some of the basic validation, this particular session is going to be very easy to understand. Okay. If you are talking about regression, can you tell me what was the validation measure that we used for regression? In regression, y is a continuous variable. That means it can take a range of values. That means y can be 25 or 35 or 45 or 55 or 100 or anything like that. If the target variable is continuous, okay, something like loss percentage is what I am predicting. In that case, to measure whether the model is good model or not, what is the measure that we have used? For example, in KC, King County house price data, where we are predicting the house price, that was our target. Now the house price can be anything. The house price can be $500, or it can be $5,000, or it can be $10,000, $12,000, $1 million, like that. So what is the measure that we have used in regression? We have calculated y actual values minus y predicted, etc., etc. R square was the first measure. Do you remember it? R squared value,
Yes.
sum of squares of regression divided by sum of squares of error. In fact, when we were discussing feature engineering, I also told you one extra measure. If you are working with regression, you can also use that measure. You calculate the y actual value minus y predicted value, take the absolute deviation, okay, and then divided by y actual. This is absolute error divided by y actual. That is percentage error, absolute percentage error. Take the mean of all this. That means sum divided by count 1 by n into summation of all these values. Do you remember the name of it? Mean,
MAP
mean absolute
percentage.
percentage error. And it is usually known as MAPE, isn't it? That is like, if MAPE is 2%, that means 2% is error. Y actuals and Y predictors on an average are 2% deviated. Okay. So if you look at the regression, it is very simple. Error at a single point will be take Y actual minus Y predicted. Usually Y predicted is denoted with a hat. Y actual minus Y predicted. Okay. Sum of squares of errors. Sum of squares of errors. This is error. Take the square. At every point, if you are taking it, sum of squares of error. Mean absolute deviation. This is deviation. Take the average. This is the absolute value. Take the average of all such deviations. Tell me, for a good model, what should be sum of squares of error? What should be the value of sum of squares of error for a good model?
Around 0.
It should be near to 0. What should be mean absolute deviation for a good model?
0. Around 0.
That is also near to 0. Mean absolute percentage error. Now this is like absolute error. Sometimes if the data is in millions, maybe 1,000, maybe a smaller number. Sometimes if the data is in thousands, then an error of 100 is also high. So that is why to get a better idea, we divide it by y actual, mean absolute percentage error. And what should be this number for a good model? Mean absolute percentage error.
Close to 0.
Near to
That
0%.
is also near to 0. Mean squared error, that is also near to 0. Root mean squared error. If you look at it carefully, I think all these are derived from this one only, isn't it? Y actual minus y predicted. Have you observed it? Sometimes we
Yes.
take the absolute value that should be near to 0. Sometimes we take the square value that should be near to 0 divided by this one. This whole things, if you look at them carefully, be it error at one point, be it sum of squares of error, mean absolute percentage error, or mean squared error, or root mean square error, RMSE, root mean square error, all of them should be near to 0. So the most widely used ones, if you ask me, this is the one that a lot of people use. If somebody questions you, apart from R square, if I want to use any other validation measure for checking whether my model is doing a good job or not, you should be mentioning mean absolute percentage error. Are you comfortable with it? Will you be able to recollect this? Like what is the additional extra? You can also recollect all these mean squared error or root mean squared error, but this is another one which is easy. We have also seen in feature engineering. So mean absolute percentage error, which will tell you what percent on an average, what percent error the model is making, and that should be near to 0. Okay. That is for the regression problems. Okay. This is not really tedious. This is very easy. Now let us see what are the additional validation metrics for classification. For classification, what is the validation metric that we are using until now? If you have zeros and ones, these are the y actual values. And then these are the predicted values, y predicted values. And predicting 0 as 0 is good, 1 as 1 is good. And then overall, this is bad, this is bad. So we will say from the confusion matrix, we derive the accuracy. Okay. This is the overall accuracy. So overall right predictions divided by overall number of records. That is what we calculate. That's how we calculate the accuracy. Now there is one extra measure that we can calculate. Let us see what is the need of that extra measure. Let us suppose you are predicting, let us suppose there is a data set which has 1 lakh records. Okay. There is a data set which has 1 lakh records. You are going to predict whether the transaction is fraud or non-fraud. Okay. This is the model that we have built. 1 lakh transactions happened. Out of 1 lakh transactions, one transaction was fraud transaction. Remaining 99,999 transactions are not fraudulent. Okay. This is actual values, non-fraud. Okay. One transaction is fraud. Remaining 99,999 transactions are not fraud. Okay. Let me give you this as a data set. Okay. So if you look at this data, it looks like this. If I tell you the y actual values, y actual, the target here is fraud or not fraud. Let us take the first record itself is fraud, 1. Remaining all are zeros. Okay. Like that. Remaining 99,000, overall 1 lakh records are there. Okay. Look at this carefully. Now we built a model. Okay. And the model is not good. Well, you know what it did? It predicted everything as non-fraud, 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 like that. All the 1 lakh records, it did not do a great prediction. By default, it takes the input. It takes x1, x2, and so on, xk. Look at this. It takes all x1, x2, and so on, xk, and predicts it as non-fraud. Everything it takes, it gives 0 as the output. It just spits 0 as the output. Nothing else it gives. Now for this output, can you create the confusion matrix and tell me the accuracy? Let us create the confusion matrix here. Y actual, zeros and ones. Okay, all of you try to participate. Y predicted, okay, which has zeros and ones, Y actual and Y predicted. How many times 0 was predicted as 0 accurately? Count it. Overall 1 lakh are there. How many times 0 was predicted as 0? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Everywhere
5
0.
times 9.
How many times? Tell me.
5 times 9.
Yeah. So 99,999 times 0 was predicted as 0. Okay. That is good prediction by the model. I like it. How many times 1 was predicted as 1? Right predictions. How many times 1 was the actual value, but prediction was made as 1, which is a good job by the model. How
0.
many times? Tell me, where is it? 1 has been predicted as 1.
0.
Yeah. Is there any case where there is 1 here which has been predicted as 1? Is there any such case?
No.
So
No.
there are 0 occasions where 1 was predicted as 1. What about this one? Original value was 0, but the model has predicted it as 1. How many times did that happen?
0.
0.
Actually, the model has never predicted as 1. That means the model, every transaction it is saying authentic, authentic, authentic. It has never predicted any fraud. So this is also 0. It has predicted everything as 0 only. So like 1 has been never predicted by the model. 1 was the original one, which is like fraud. Once the fraud happened, how many times the model has captured fraud?
1.
Yes. So here it is like capturing fraud, like it's like, model, there was one occasion where it was 1, but the model has it predicted as 1. No, it has predicted as 0. Now tell me, what is the accuracy of this model? Look at this. In the denominator, what should I keep here? What about this? This one is 1, right?
This one is 1.
Yeah, correct. 1 has been predicted as 0. Are you with me? Look at this. 1 is the actual value, predicted 0. In the denominator, what is the number that you have in the denominator?
1 lakh.
1 lakh records we have predicted. The model has made a prediction of 1 lakh records. Out of them, how many right predictions it made?
9. 5 times 9.
99,000. Tell me, what is the accuracy of the model? 99.999%. Tell me one thing. The model has an accuracy of 99.9999%. Why did you build this model? All of you, think like a business partner. Think like a client. You gave me a problem statement. What do you want me to do? You want me to find the fraud. If there is a fraud, my model has to capture it. Did the model capture the fraud? When there was a fraud transaction, did the model really find it? Out of 1 lakh times, one time there was a fraud. Did the model successfully identify the fraud when it happened?
No.
No. But still, what are we saying? We are saying the model is 99.999999% accurate. Does it make any sense? Here, one side we are saying the model is absolutely perfect. But is it solving the purpose? No. Overall accuracy has this issue. What is it? If there is a class imbalance, one class dominates, there are so many zeros, very less ones. If there's a class imbalance, then overall accuracy is not a good measure. Overall accuracy should be ignored. You have to ignore overall accuracy if there is a class imbalance. Do you understand this term, class imbalance? Class imbalance means there are class 0, there is class 1. Zeros are very high, 90% or more. Ones are very low, that is class imbalance. Or ones are very high, zeros are very low. No balance between the classes. If 60% here, 40% here, that is fine. Even 30%, 70% is also fine. but one of them is almost negligible, the other one is totally dominating. When there is class imbalance, you should ignore the overall accuracy because it is largely driven by the dominating class. Overall accuracy is largely driven by the dominating class. Here, dominating class is zeros. The overall accuracy in zeros itself. Let's say 0 means non-fraud. Non-fraud. Let us calculate the accuracy only in this row. Out of all the non-fraud, how many times we have accurately predicted them? In the denominator, tell me what overall non-fraud. Take the accuracy only in this one. Overall non-fraud. Take the first row. How many records are there in the first row overall?
1.
How many records are
1.
there in the first row? In the first row only.
Okay.
Non-fraud.
5 times 9.
Non-fraud are 99,999. Out of them, how many times your model has accurately predicted non-fraud records, sir? These are all the non-fraudulent records, 99,999. Out of them, how many times your model gave accurate predictions?
5 times 9.
Or every occasion
Every
my
time.
model has predicted correctly. What is the accuracy of the first class? Non-fraud class
100%.
accuracy
100%.
is 100%. Okay, I'm happy. Whenever it is non-fraudulent, whenever there is no fraud, the model is 100% saying it is non-fraud. That is fine. Now come to the second row. Tell me the denominator. How many fraud records were there? How many fraud transactions happened? 1. Out of them, how many times your model has accurately predicted?
0.
0. What is the accuracy of the second class, which is fraud class?
0.
Yeah? 0%. Look at this. Accuracy of the non-fraud class is 100%. Accuracy of the fraud class is 0%. Tell me, which one are you interested in? Are you interested in the non-fraud class or the fraud class?
Fraud.
Yeah.
Fraud.
Whenever fraud happens, I'll be much more careful. Whenever fraud is not happening, but if still the model says it is fraud, we will reject the transaction. Look at this. You are a credit card swiper. When you swiped a card, there was no fraud, but still I blocked or still I rejected the transaction. You will just get irritated. But if there is fraud, if I don't block it, then you will lose more, isn't it? Think about it.
Yes.
So this is very critical for us comparatively.
Yes.
Here we cannot make any mistakes, but in the class that we are taking it critically, there it is only 0% accuracy. So the class that is very important for us, there we have achieved nothing. But overall accuracy seems to be 99.99% accurate. That is the problem with the overall accuracy. Overall accuracy gives the equal importance to both the classes. Sometimes when there is class imbalance, we are interested in only one class. In that case, we have to look at the individual class-wise accuracy. Do you agree with that point? Sometimes we have to ignore the overall accuracy and focus on individual class-wise accuracy. Does it make sense in few business cases? Yes or no? Think about it. Because here, a non-fraud transaction is not equal to the fraud transaction. That is why we have to look at individual class-wise accuracy. Class 0 accuracy is known as sensitivity. Class 1 accuracy is known as specificity. That means if you have 0 class, which is known as positive class, this is known as sensitivity. This is known as specificity. Accuracy of class 1 is known as specificity. Sometimes this is known as positive. Positive as positive is true positive. Negative as negative is true negative. False negative, false positive. So the formula will be TP divided by TP plus FN. Or simple formula will be accurate predictions divided by overall number of records in that row. Sensitivity is the class 0 accuracy. Now 0 definition can be anything. Sensitivity will be always the first row. Now, if you are keeping 0 or 1, it is up to us. Okay. Sensitivity means whichever is your class 0, whatever you have defined. Let's say if it is fraud or non-fraud, whatever it is, sensitivity is always the first class. And there are some cases where sensitivity is important. There are some cases where second class is important. It all depends. Let me give you one example. You are predicting whether a customer is good customer or bad customer. Let us suppose class 0 is a defaulter, bad customer. That means you are going to give a loan and your target value is 0 or 1. 0 means bad customer. Let's say 1 means good customer. That is what the definition is. 1 means non-defaulter or good customer. These are the actual values. Predicting bad as bad, very good. Predicting good as good, that is also good. No error, no error. Now this is one type of error. What is one type of error? Customer is actually bad, but you have predicted him as good. Now that is an error. Customer is, that means you are going to reject his loan offer, isn't it? Customer is actually good, but you have predicted him as bad. If you predict him as bad, here we reject his loan offer. But if the bad customer is predicted as good, then we will accept the loan offer. That means we are going to accept the application and provide him the loan. Now here also you'll make some loss. Here also you'll make some loss. Let's say you make 10 mistakes here and you make 10 mistakes here. Can you tell me which one is serious for us? Which loss is more? Think about it. Is this error critical or is this error critical? That means if you make error here, so customer is bad, but you predicted him as good, 10 loans, 10 bad loans you will give. Okay. Customer is good, but you predicted him as bad. So 10 good customers, you will reject the loan application. Which one is more dangerous for us? Think about it. A good
Negative.
customer,
False negative.
False negative.
a good customer applied for a loan. Let's say you are a bank. A good customer, he is going to pay back all the money, but you rejected his loan offer. Versus a bad customer is not going to pay back, but still we gave him a loan. Which one is dangerous for us in this case?
Bad
Think
customer.
about. So bad customer giving a bad loan. Maybe one customer here may eat the profit of 100 goods. Here I lose only profit. Yes or no? In this one, if I reject a loan application, I lose only profit. But what do I lose here? If I'm accepting a bad customer's loan application, I lose the total principal, isn't it? That means one bad customer may eat away all the 10 or 15 good people's profit. So that is why this is very critical for me. Now tell me, in this case, is sensitivity important or is specificity important for me? Which one I should give more preference?
Sensitivity.
Yeah. So here one good and one bad customer, they are not equal. For me, sensitivity is very important. Depending on the business, sometimes this class is important, sometimes this class is important. Let us take one more example. You're testing whether a medicine is good or poisonous. 0 means yes, the medicine is good. 1 means medicine is poisonous. Predicting good medicine as good medicine, that is good. Predicting poisonous as poisonous, that is good. Now this is one type of error. Medicine is actually good, but you have predicted it as poisonous. That is one type of error. That means you're not going to recommend that medicine. Medicine is poisonous, but you have predicted it as good. Poisonous medicine, by mistake, model is predicting it as good. We are going to recommend that medicine. Tell me one mistake here. What is the loss? One mistake here. What is the loss? First tell me one mistake here in the first row. By mistake, good medicine was predicted as poisonous. What are we going to do? What is the loss here?
Profit or sales.
Yeah, so that
Profit.
sales or the medicine will be lost, etc., etc. What about this one? What is the loss here?
Life
Poisonous
is lost.
medicine, we have predicted it as good. What will be the loss here? Almost life loss, isn't it? Intangible.
Yes, sir.
Now tell me which one is dangerous. Is first row important for me or second row important for me?
Second.
Second row. So in this case, when you are building this model, which one you will be maximizing? Which one you will be focusing more on?
Specificity.
Sensitivity or specificity?
Specificity.
Specificity. Sometimes, like if it is here, then you will say sensitivity. If it is here, then you will say specificity. I can't really always say that always sensitivity is good, always specificity is good. No, depending on the problem that you are handling, look at the row, understand the problem statement, which class is important for me, which loss is more dangerous for me. Look at that. Based on that, you decide whether it is sensitivity or specificity. But always the first row is sensitivity. The one fixed one is always the first row is sensitivity, second row is specificity. That means when you tell me specificity is important for me, automatically I'll look at your second row. Okay. When you tell me sensitivity is important for me, automatically I'll look at the first row. Okay. Depending on what is your definition of first row and second row, you have to tell me sensitivity or specificity is important. Which one is important for you? Okay. These are few examples. This whole thing is confusion matrix. But what I'm trying to prove, my point that I'm trying to prove here is sometimes overall accuracy, which gives equal preference to class 1 and class 2 should be ignored. We have to look at the class wise accuracy. Are you convinced with this point? Sometimes we need to ignore the overall accuracy. We have to look at the class wise accuracy in specific cases where one class is not equal to the other class. Does it make sense to you right now? Is that point clear?
Yes.
Yeah, especially when there is a class imbalance, one class is really dominating. Let's say one class itself has 90% of the data. The overall accuracy mostly driven by that data where 90% is there, but mostly we may not be interested in that class. If you are interested in the other class, class-wise accuracy need to be calculated. And calculation is not very very tedious. This is right prediction, this plus this in a confusion matrix. If I'm telling you confusion matrix, this is CM00, this is CM01, this is 01, this is 10 element, this is 11 element, and the calculation will be CM00 divided by CM00 plus CM11, like that. The calculation is not tedious, just the understanding that we need to have. So calculation of specificity and sensitivity, let us see that. First of all, we will go to the code file. I'll pull the code file from the classroom. So we will go to the classroom, model selection, cross validation, model selection, cross validation code. I'm going to paste this code in the chat window. All of you go to the code file. It is there in the chat window. Import the data set. Let us do the first lab exercise. Import the data set, credit risk data, create a confusion matrix, find the accuracy, calculate the sensitivity, calculate the specificity. Apparently, those who are doing logistic regression assignment, something like this, a few questions related to this are also mentioned there. Maybe after this section, you will be able to complete the final few questions from logistic regression assignment as well. Tell me what is accuracy, sensitivity, specificity. Accuracy, sensitivity, specificity. Overall accuracy is 93%. Sensitivity is 99%. Specificity is 14.9%. Look at this data. If you look at it, 0, serious delinquency, 0. That means good customer. 1 means seriously delinquent, which is like bad customer. This is the actual values. 0 means good customer. 1 means bad customer. Now sensitivity, first of all, you got the overall accuracy to be 93%. Sensitivity is 99%. Specificity is 14 or 15%. Tell me, in this case, which one is important for us? 1 means bad customer, seriously delinquent. Predicting bad as bad, is that important? Or predicting good? Which class is important here? Is it sensitivity that is important for me, or is it specificity that is important? Try to think about it. Specificity, we have discussed that, right? Think about it. If a customer is bad, I have to eliminate them. Do you agree with that point? If a customer is bad, I have to make sure that I don't give any bad loans. If a customer is good, is it okay if we reject his application, even if the accuracy is less there? Is it okay? If a customer is good, is it okay to reject the application? At least to a certain extent, it's okay, isn't it? Maybe we cannot
Yes.
reject everything. I'm not saying that totally ignore it, but the 15% accuracy here, 99% accuracy here, at least this 15%, this is the critical point. In fact, we are building the model to identify bad customers only, because 90% of the customers will be good only most of the times. Only this 9 to 10% of the customers are bad. These are very rare. Now they need to be identified carefully. Is there a way to increase? Is there a way to increase this probability? Is there a way to increase this? Here is the solution. Look at this carefully. Imagine 1 means bad customer, here in our case 0 means good customer. Right now we are keeping a threshold at 0.5. If the probability, if the target value, the predicted value is greater than 0.5, we are saying he is a bad customer. If the predicted value is less than 0.5, we were saying we are classifying him as a good customer. What if I say that the probability of bad is 0.45? Is it okay, since bad is very rare? Is it okay if I call him as bad as well? Think about it. Somebody is on the boundary. Earlier, I used to call him as good. Is it okay if we call him as bad now? Think about it. So that, because bad is very rare for me, even though there is a very less chance of bad, I want to classify him as bad only. Or for example, 1 means fraudulent account. Even though there is only 45% of chance of being fraud, still can I call it as fraud? Let's say you swiped the card and I built the model. The model is predicting there's a 45% chance that there is a fraud. Shall I say, hey, this is less than 50%, let us go through it, let us approve it? Or shall I say, hey, 45% is not such a small number, since the fraud itself is very rare, it has to be very, very small, maybe 0.1 or 0.2%, but it is 45%, let us call it as fraud. What do you think is a meaningful option here? Think about it.
Calling it as a fraud.
Isn't it? Like, even though there is a small chance, I don't want to miss out on this. Are you with me? I don't want to miss out the chance that even though there is a smaller chance, but still, since it is very rare, that is why I should not give equal chance of 50-50. What we can do is we can lower the threshold. That means even though there is a small chance of fraud also, I will call it as fraud. Even though there is only 0.25, I would say that, okay, still there is a 25% chance of fraud. Let me call it as fraud, so that there's a high chance that I can capture them. So what we can do in practical scenarios is you can reduce the threshold. You can reduce the threshold if you're focusing on 0, or if you're focusing on 1, sorry. That means even though there is a less chance of that person being bad, of that transaction being fraud, I'll be able to capture it. By doing so, I can increase this accuracy. Vice versa, which means if I want to focus on this class, I can increase the threshold. If you want to focus on this class, you can reduce the threshold. So you can play with the threshold a little bit. That means you have built the model. You cannot do anything right now. You have used all the data, you have built the model, but finally at the prediction time, there can be a small adjustment that you can do. What is it? You can reduce the threshold. You can reduce the threshold so that the probability of class 1, even though there is a small chance of finding it, it will increase. That means this 15%, if you want to push it up, you can reduce the threshold. If you want to increase this probability, the sensitivity, if you want to increase, you can increase the threshold. Okay, go ahead, try a low threshold value. Tell me the new updated numbers. Try a low threshold value. Tell me the new updated numbers. So overall accuracy will decrease, but we don't care about the accuracy. When there's a class imbalance, you can totally ignore the accuracy. But what I want to focus on is the specificity in this case. From 15%, we can lift that specificity to what percent here? 35%. And this is what I am looking at. Overall accuracy, whenever there is a class imbalance, that itself doesn't make sense. We will be looking at single class accuracy, whichever class is very important for us. And it is our responsibility based on the business. We have to identify which class is important for us that need to be identified.
So one question I have.
Yeah.
As we had confirmed to sensitivity and specificity based on the classes. So by specificity and sensitivity, we know that this is bad and this is good.
We never know that.
Yes,
So,
but by manipulating the threshold, we are not playing with sensitivity and specificity.
so what we want to do is, let us suppose you have two options. You can give a lot of bad loans with this. Let's say right now, if you go ahead with 50% threshold, okay, 0.5. Anything above 50%, you are saying bad customer. Anything below first 50%, you are saying good customer. Let us suppose if we, as a bank, if we go ahead with this result, think about it. As a bank, I'm going ahead with this, only 50% or more probability, then only I would like to call them as bad customers. Okay. Are you with me? If that is the case, how many bad customers are you losing? How many of them are actually captured? Only 15%. How much error we are making? 85%. Bad loans we are giving. Okay. Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Now we have this situation. Can we go ahead like this? 85% bad loans. This is a bad situation. How do you capture bad customers is the question. I'm capturing only 15% bad customers. Is there a way to capture more bad customers is the question. So instead of calling anybody more than 50% as bad, let us suppose instead of bad, think your class 1 as there is a bomb in the car. You're predicting it. 0 means there is no bomb in the car. Until now, we are saying only more than 50% probability, then only I will classify that car as bomb. Imagine there's a car which comes and stands. Imagine the probability of finding the bomb in that car. Imagine the probability is 0.45. Now imagine you're standing in front of that car. Will you say, hey, the probability is less than 50%, let it go. It is not dangerous, it is free. Or will you say, hey, even though it is 45%, even though it is less than 50%, I would like to still classify it as bombed car and I want to re-verify it because bomb class is very important for me. What do you think we should do?
0.445 has to be taken into consideration.
Isn't it? Even though there is a less chance, still you want to classify it as class 1? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Even though it is 30%, you still want to make it as bomb. Even though it is 20, because this is very rare for us. Yes or no? If this is equal to this one, then I would have given equal preference. By keeping threshold at 0.5, you are giving equal preference to both the classes. By keeping threshold at a lower value, you are giving more preference to this one. In some cases, it is important for us to give more preference to this class. That is why we are reducing the threshold. Okay. Because here finding a bad customer is rare. And if there is a bad customer, we would like to capture him with more accuracy. That is the reason why we reduce the threshold. Because 50% is a default threshold, which kind of assumes that both the classes are equal, which we are kind of tweaking it. We are giving this extra input to the model. In some cases, in some real cases where there is class imbalance, this credit risk example is one example like that, where we need to play with the threshold to do the equal justice, especially when one class which is very important compared to the other class.
But sir, in real time, before validating, we are just keeping this threshold default value, right?
Right, 0.5. Default threshold is 0.5.
Because we are we are not changing this
value. In
Value.
reality, what happens is the logistic regression output will be between 0 to 1. Okay, that will be the output of a logistic regression line. Okay, now it will be simply rounded off. If the predicted value is 0.95, the class will be 1. If the predicted value is 0.05, the class will be 0. If the predicted value is 0.51, the class will be 1. 0.49, the class will be 0. It will be default by default at 0.5 by default. Right now, what we are doing is we are changing the threshold. We are taking the probability as it is, changing the threshold to focus on one particular class, because here one class is not equal to the other one. That's the reason. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any more questions on that? Why is it justified? Are you kind of convinced that since one class is important for me, that is why I'm reducing the threshold, I can find this more often? Are you justified? Like, is that reason justified? Yeah, why we are reducing the threshold here?
Yeah.
Now this is called sensitivity and specificity. Sometimes sensitivity is important, sometimes specificity is important. There are different names for it. So earlier we called sensitivity and specificity, the same formulas. Now I'm going to give you a set of more formulas. Just I'm going to introduce new names, but the formulas will be very simple. Earlier we called sensitivity, right? Sensitivity is known as recall of class 0. Specificity is known as recall of class 1. So first row wise accuracy, if you find, this is known as recall of class 0, recall of class 1. You can also find accuracy column wise. Within all predicted positive, within all predicted 0, how many are actually 0? Within all predicted 0, how many are actually 0? Tell me the column wise accuracy. Tell me the accuracy in this column if I have to see. That means you have predicted all of them as 0. Out of them, how many are accurate? What is the column wise accuracy? True positive divided by, try to come up with the formula.
True positive plus false positive.
True positive plus false positive. This is known as precision. That means if you are hitting, how many of them you are rightly hitting? Okay. So here it is like out of all the ones, how many of them have you rightly found? Here, why out of all the shots that you have taken, how many are right? So this is known as precision of class 0. This is known as precision of class 1. Recall and precision. Sometimes in some companies, I have seen people using recall and precision. Once again, what is recall? What is precision? Your first class, second class. Accuracy of this class, first row is recall 0. Second row is recall 1. First column is precision 0, precision 1. Okay. So look at the formulas. Let us write down all the formulas by ourselves. So you have 0, which is known as positive. You have 1, which is known as negative class. All of you, if you can do it by yourself, then there is no need of any explanation. 0 is positive, 1 is negative. Okay. This is true positive. Predicting negative as negative. What is this one? Predicting negative as true negative. Predicting positive falsely as negative. What is it?
False negative.
False negative. Predicting negative falsely as positive, which will be
False positive.
false positive. Tell me recall of class 1, recall of class 0, let's say. What is this one? How much is this? Tell me. What is denominator first? TP plus Fn is the denominator, and numerator would be
False.
TP. Recall of class 1 will be denominator. First tell me the denominator.
Tn plus Fp.
Tn plus Fp.
Fp plus Tn. And what is the numerator?
Tn.
Tn. Perfect. Precision of class 0. Precision of class 0.
TP divided by
TP divided by TP plus
Fp.
Fp. Precision of class 1.
Tn by Fn plus Tn.
Tn by
Fn by
Fn
Fn plus
by,
TP. Is it like that? Tell me the
Tn.
right formula.
Tn
Is
by
the numerator?
Tn by
Right.
Fn plus Tn.
Tn by Fn plus Tn. That is it, precision. It is just a different name that is given. So now, like now that you have written the same formulas, recall, precision, recall of class 0, class 1 recall, precision of class 0, class 1 precision. These are new formulas. So sometimes you may get questions on precision and recall. Will you be able to make this? Is it easy to understand? Class row 1 accuracy, row 2 accuracy, or class 0 accuracy, class 1 accuracy, class 0 precision, class 1 recall. Okay. Now there is one more extra score that you may see, that is known as F1 score, something similar to accuracy. But if you are focusing only on one class, so you take recall of class 0, you take precision of class 0. This is recall related to 0. This is precision related to 0. If you take the harmonic mean, since this is also a fraction, this is also a fraction, direct mean we should not take. If you take the harmonic mean of recall and precision, that is known as F1 score. In some of the competitions, etc., you will see apart from accuracy, F1 score is calculated. Accuracy is for the full matrix. Accuracy is for the full all the classes, whereas F1 score is for a single class. That is the only difference. Okay. F1 score either for 0 or for 1 you will calculate. Let's say if you are calculating F1 score for class 0, take recall of class 0, precision of class 0, take the harmonic mean of recall and precision. So it is harmonic mean. It is like 2 divided by 1 by, like the right way to do it is 1 divided by 1 by recall plus 1 by precision divided by 2. This 2 goes up. Okay. So 2 divided by recall, 1 by recall plus 1 by precision. That is the formula for harmonic mean. Usually harmonic mean is calculated for fractions. Okay. If you have fraction and fraction, if you want to find the rate and rate, if you want to find the average, find the F1 score. Apart from this, there are so many measures. Okay. F beta score, gain USC, MAP, MASC, R2 score, normalized gain, etc. Kappa. There are so many measures. What I want to tell you is all of them are derived from confusion matrix only. Different measures, unnecessary measures. I think already you may have felt recall is unnecessary, isn't it? Recall and precision. If you already have sensitivity, specificity, what is the need of it? Even I don't understand sometimes why there are new measures. So even if you see some more new measures in future, just be aware that I just need to see the formula. It will be derived from confusion matrix. So no need to really worry about any new measure that you see. Okay. At the end of the day, what really matters is, have I predicted 0 as 0? Have I predicted 1 as 1? That's what matters. So as of now, what we will do is we will stop the discussion with these measures, recall and precision and F1 score. Okay. So go ahead, calculate the recall, precision, F1 score for both the classes. Here, when it comes to recall, precision, it is a class wise is what is we are going to calculate. So give me the results, recall and precision, F1 score for class 0 and class 1. Either we can manually do it or there is a package also. There is a function, direct function. But let us not use the function, at least for the sake of practice, since you know the formulas. First we will do it manually, then you can use the ready-made function. The function name is classification report, it is known as. Okay. You can use classification report function, supply y actual, y predicted, or confusion matrix, then you'll get the results, or you can calculate on your own as well. Go ahead, calculate recall and precision for both the classes. Recall is an alternative name or a different name for sensitivity, specificity, recall 0, recall 1. Precision is column wise accuracy. F1 score is focusing on a particular class. Instead of giving equal importance to class 0 and class 1, I would like to focus on a particular class. Okay. Shall we proceed to the next point of discussion? Are you done with these calculations? Quickly send me a message once you are done with this. Send me a confirmation. Yes. Changing the threshold is one way of handling the class imbalance. There is one more way that you can follow, because sometimes you have this data. So I have this situation where only 5% or 10% are class 1. Okay. These are all ones. Remaining all are zeros. What to do now? I have this data. What to do? What is the problem if you have this data? A machine learning model will see that there are so many zeros. It will try to learn only everything related to zeros only. But ones are important for me. Let's say this is fraud. This is non-fraud. Zero means non-fraud, let us suppose, non-fraud record or non-fraud transaction. The model, since it did not get a lot of data, the model will not learn the patterns related to one. Even if it tries to, since there are lesser number of records, the model should not give any preference to these ones. Now, for me, which one is important? If a fraud account is there, fraud record is there, that need to be found with more precision. Somehow, I need to tell my model that even though there is a less chance of finding one, I would like to capture it. How do you do that? How do you tell the model that one is important for you? In this case, what you can do is, if the problem of class imbalance is there, what you can do is very simple technique called oversampling and undersampling. You can do the oversampling of the inferior class. Let's say class 1 is very rare for you. Do the oversampling. Let's say there is only 10% of the records in class 1. There is a 5% here, 5%. Overall, 1 is there at 10% of the times, but 0 is there 90% of the times. You know what you can do? Repeat this 10% with duplication. Repeat it 3-4 times. Let's say I have repeated thrice. Then 30% of the ones will be there. Yes, I know I am duplicating, but that is still fine, because here for me, class 1 is important. My model is not learning. It is not really solving the purpose. That is why 10% I have repeated them 3 times to get 30% of the data. Out of the remaining 90%, take only a sample to fill the rest of the data, which is like 70%. I will take zeros. Out of 90%, I'm going to undersample the class that is superior, oversample the class that is inferior. That means the class that is appearing less number of times, oversample it. The class that is appearing more number of times, undersample it. Supply this to the model. The model will feel that, hey, looks like there are so many ones. The model will learn the patterns related to ones. That means you are feeding some kind of biased data to the model, so that the model can learn the patterns related to one. And that is more beneficial than feeding the original data. If you feed the original data, the model that you get will not be useful. Whereas if you feed this data, even though there is a less chance of finding one, no matter where, even though there is a small case of fraud, the model will actually find it. This is going to really work in practical cases. What are we going to do? Imagine these blue ones are class 1, remaining all are class 0. Okay, the white ones are class 0. Okay, now what we need to do? Oversample the inferior class, maybe 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times. Oversample the inferior class, undersample the superior class. Let's say 90% is there, only take the half of it. Then you will have the balanced data. Build a model on the balanced data. Model will learn all the patterns related to ones. Then there is a better use of this model than the model that is built on the original data. Yes, this is the original factual information. I should build the model on this. But if I build the model, it is not useful. But if I tweak the data, if I take a biased sample like this, if I build the model, this has higher accuracy in terms of one class. Class 1 is important for me. On that, the model will have higher accuracy. This is what we should do, especially some cases, the class will be very, very rare. Think about email marketing. Look at the output, responders versus non-responders. Do you think 50% of the people will respond, 50% will not respond? Will it be like that? Will there be a class imbalance there? Think about it. When we are doing marketing, are we going to get 50% responses back, or very, very rare responses will come? Think about it. Very rare, isn't it? How many times we have responded to a email that was sent to us? Like, there are so many insurance mails that we get. There are so many credit card mails that we get. Have we ever responded? Very rare. Or something like good versus bad. The customers who pay back, they will be almost 90%. Bad customers who do not pay back, they will be very less. It's not 50-50 in the real world. Fraud versus non-fraud. Think about it. Do you think 50% of the transactions that we are making, these are non-fraud? Remaining all 50% are fraud. Is that the case in the real world? Does it make sense? No. Very, very rare fraud transactions will be there. So take most of that data, and non-fraudulent transactions, there will be millions. They take a few amount of that data. This is known as oversampling and undersampling technique, which works like a charm. Look at this. The actual data, the number of zeros are 1,39,000. Number of ones are 10,000 only. Roughly 93% are zeros, 93% are good customers. Only 6% or 7% are bad customers. If you give this data as it is to the model will be built, but the model is not good for prediction. And why would you like to have such model which is not solving our purpose? So to solve this problem, what we are going to do, we are going to oversample this 6%, maybe 2, 3, or 4 times I'll increase. Oversample it and take only here. This one, I'm increasing it by 4 times. That means 7 will be almost 28%. So overall, this will be 40,000 records. And undersample it, maybe take only 50% of those records. Those many zeros, I don't require it. Undersample it, take 50% of it out of 1,39,000, 1,40,000, somewhere around 70K. So overall data will have 70K from zeros and around 40K from ones. So the balanced data will have nearly 70K from zeros, 40K from ones. Still, there is a little bit of imbalance. That is still fine. Zeros are 63%, ones are 36%. Now the model will effectively learn ones. Now look at the accuracy or the specificity. This is the first time we got something more than 50%. Until now, it was reeling around 15% or 30% somehow. This is the first time where we have got it to 55%. Okay. So we will be able to capture effectively the class that we are interested in. And if there's a class imbalance, you can practice this method of oversampling and undersampling. This is a very common practice when we are working on real data sets. Go ahead, execute this oversampling and undersampling exercise. Oversampling and undersampling exercise. Let me explain this once again, or maybe from the code file, it will be easier. Run anyway, import pandas as PD. Okay, we'll go here after recall and handling class imbalance. The actual data looks like this. Actual data has 1,39,000, almost like 1,40,000 versus 10,000, 93 and 6, creating the balanced data. Only 50% of the zeros, 4 times the ones. Final balance data looks like this. 70,000, 40,000, which is like 63 versus 36. Creating the model with the balanced data. Here are the results. SM is not defined, somewhere above I have to run SM. Then comes the specificity and sensitivity. So go ahead, execute this exercise. Once you are done with this exercise, send me a message. Once you're done with this, send me a message, the confirmation. This whole practice is preferred only when one class is important over the other class. When there is a class imbalance, one class, the class that we are interested is low. The class that we are not interested, that is dominating. In this case, if we directly build as it is the model, in practice, the model will be built, may give overall accuracy high, but it is not useful in practice. To make it useful, because at the end of the day, I want to capture these. The business requirement is capture the bad customers, capture the fraud transactions. So these are very important for me. Somehow predicting these with more accuracy is what we are doing in all these attempts. All right, is this code working? Check this out. Go ahead, all of you. Shall we proceed? Shall I go to the next slide? All of you. This is a kind of very simple trick just to make sure that we are increasing the probability of finding the bad customers or a particular class. These are some of the validation techniques. We have discussed one more important validation step. There are two different type of data sets. Overall, we have only one overall data, isn't it? There is one overall data. Then what do we do with this one overall data? We break it into two parts. Tell me, what are those two parts?
Train and
Train
test.
and
So
test
we break
data.
it into train and test data. Usually, what is the split that we take?
80%, 20%.
So usually we take 80% train, 20% test. Is it okay if I take 75-25? Is it okay?
Yes.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
also fine. Is it okay if I take train data as 20%, test data as 80%? Is it okay?
No,
No.
sir.
No, that is not okay. Why it's not okay?
Because in this case, model will not be able to learn the pattern properly.
Because you have 100 records, And how many records are we using for learning the patterns? How many records are we
20.
using for only 20? Is it a good idea? Is it a good idea to take 50-50? This is also not a good idea, isn't it? Use considerable amount of data, use large amount of data for model building. However, keep aside manageable amount of data for validating as well. You will be shocked to know when I was giving this training in a corporate company, they were doing this mistake. By mistake, they took, like they thought, what's wrong? Let us keep 50 for training, 50 for testing. Can you tell me what is the problem there? What's the problem? We are not getting hang of the full data. 50% of the data may not really reflect the full data. Do you agree with my point? Think about it. 50% of the data that you are taking may not totally reflect all the patterns in the overall data. You need to be careful. Usually 80-20 is fine. 85-15, is that fine? 85-15. Is that fine? 85 for training, 15 for testing.
Yes.
That is also fine. 75-25 is also fine. But too much less here. Is it okay? 99% versus 1%. Is that fine?
No,
What is the problem here?
we are not testing enough.
That
Testing
means
enough.
we do not have this enough testing data which can challenge or robust enough. So we need to have good enough sample in the test data as well. Now, when we are doing this kind of validation, it is known as cross validation or holdout data validation, train data or holdout data validation, cross validation. Sometimes the train accuracy will be very high, 95%, 98%, 99%, 100%. Test accuracy will be significantly low, 60%, 50%, 40%. This is known as a particular problem. What is it known as? The
Overfitting.
train accuracy is too high,
Overfitting.
test accuracy is too low. This is known as the problem of overfitting, isn't it? If you are building a decision tree, when does overfitting happen? If you are building a decision tree, in which scenario overfitting happens?
When the max depth is too much.
When the tree is too much, isn't it? The problem of overfitting, these type of models are known as models with a lot of variance. Why overfitted models are known as models with a lot of variance? If you change the data, model changes. Change the data, model changes, because model is memorizing the data. Okay. The model is memorizing the data, and if you change the data, the model will change. That's why these models are known as models with a lot of variance. Overfitting is one problem. What is the other problem which is similar to this? When you have trained data, test data, you'll observe some other problem. Let's say I want to avoid overfitting. I built a very simple model because complex models give me overfitted. That's why I built a very, very simple model, basic, simple model. Let's say decision tree, too much larger tree gave me overfitting. I built a very small tree. That will lead to
Underfitting.
underfitting. What do you mean by underfitting? How do you detect underfitting? In underfitting scenario, accuracy of
trained data.
trained
Very
data
less.
itself is very less. In that scenario, is there a need for even looking at the test data?
No.
No need to even look at the test data. Accuracy of trained data itself is lower, or sometimes it will be tricky. Underfitting is little tricky. I got 80% accuracy on trained data. Can I confidently say that this is not underfitted? Who knows? Maybe there is a scope for 90% accuracy, isn't it? So underfitting is little tricky. That is why we need to build as much as bigger tree itself. First of all, build the complex model, use all the features, go for overfitting issue only. You know what you need to do always when you are building the model? First, make sure that you are overfitting. Then try to reduce and lessen the depth, lessen the complexity, so that you can have the optimal model. Okay. Not necessarily significantly lower, 60, 50, 40, not just this. Let's say there is a scope of accuracy of 90% and you stopped at an 80% accuracy. Is this also underfitting? Think about it. The model could be 90% accurate, but you stopped too early, not very too early. You stopped when you have 80% accuracy. This is also underfitting, isn't it? Agreed or not? But a slight underfitting. May not be very huge underfitting. There is a scope for improvement. You have to do it. So a little bit of underfitting is still there. So underfitting, underfitted models, overfitted models are known as models with a lot of variance. Underfitted models are known as models with bias. Bias means inherently this model predictions are anyway wrong. There is a bias in the predictions. Building the optimal model, neither underfitting nor overfitting, is known as bias variance trade-off. That means the model complexity should be such that it should be neither too complex nor too simple. It should neither have variance nor have bias. It should be neither overfitted nor underfitted. So to do that, what do? We look at the train accuracy, we look at the test accuracy, training data, validation data, or the test data. Make sure that train error and test error are matching. So let us see a few examples of overfitted, underfitted model. So if you go here to the code file, how does an overfitted model look like? What is the significance of an overfitted model? Tell me once again, let us recollect. What is the significance of an overfitted model?
Train and test data
Train
having,
accuracy is this one, test accuracy. Okay, if somebody is arguing with me saying test accuracy anyway 89 is there, no? What's the problem? It looks like a perfect model for me. If somebody says that, what should I do? Tell me. Somebody tells me that test accuracy is already 89. 89 is pretty good. What will be your point of defense? Tell me. Look at the train accuracy. Train accuracy is 99.9999. If that is the train accuracy, what is the expected test accuracy if the model is robust?
near to
May same 99, if not 99, 98, if not 98, 97. Yes or no? But what is the amount that we got? 88. Is there a significant difference? Yes. That is why it is overfitted. What is an underfitted model? A model that has lesser accuracy. You need to be careful here. You should not look at this 81, think that 81 itself is great and this is the best that we could do. We cannot make that assumption. Are you with me? This underfitting is little tricky. We should not get convinced that, okay, I have train 81, test 81. Underfitting will confuse you because if these two are looking nearby, it seems that we can finalize the model. But who knows? There is a scope for maybe 85 or 86, 87. That much of accuracy, if that is possible, who knows? So that is why it's better to check. Right now you have reached 81. Can I increase it further? So how do you build the optimal model? So building the optimal model, you try to do the holdout data cross validation, build the model on the train data, build the model on the test data, build the best model. Go ahead. So tell me what is the final accuracy of this model? How much is the final accuracy that you can get on this model? What is the accuracy that you can get on this model? Final accuracy. Is it 81 only possible? Or is it better than 81? Go ahead. I think some of you might be working with the older version of the code. In that there was a different data set that was used. Today morning only I have updated one new version with a slightly different data set. So if the code file says October 2021, that is the code file that we are using. Even if you are using old code in that data set, that will be consistent anyway, but just a note. Okay. So the link that I have shared in the chat window, that is the one you should use. Okay. The slightly older version of the code. I have kept that code as well in the folder, but right now what we are using in the classroom is the updated version. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Somewhere around 89, 89. This is what I want to highlight. All of you, look at this. 81, 81 looks good. Looks like we can finalize it. But the scope is for 89, 89, or maybe if not exactly 89, maybe 88, 89. That is a scope that we have. But finalizing at 81, is it fair to say if I would have finalized with 81 accuracy, is it fair to say it is an underfitted model? Think about it. If I would have finalized at 81, that could have been an underfitted model, isn't it? Yeah. How do I know what is the exact optimal stopping point? Let's say if I want to give very much high preference to this validation, you have train data, you have test data. Train data accuracy is 89, test is also 89. What if I want to be very sure? The client is challenging you. Is it going to work? Are you sure it is going to give me 89? Are you sure is it going to give me 89? Don't you think this test data, maybe don't you think there may be a problem with the test data? Don't you think there may be a problem with the train data? Are you sure are you going to get 89? If you're getting the doubts, instead of doing validation once, there is something called tenfold cross validation you can do. This is like ultimate validation. That means the accuracy measure that you will get, whatever you get after this, it is like perfect. That means in future you will definitely get this accuracy. This is definitely not by chance. Maybe sometimes some people may argue, maybe this train and this test only on this it will work. Maybe it is overfitted on both the data set. That's why you're getting 89, 89. What is the guarantee that it will work everywhere? If these questions are raised, what we can do is we can do tenfold cross validation. You know how it is done? Here is the process. Take the full data. This is the full data. Break it into 10 parts, 10 equal parts. In our data, there are 1 lakh records. Break it into 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 like that. Take first 9 parts. Use them as train data. Keep aside last 10th part. Use it as test data. Build a model on this. Build model M1. Calculate the accuracy on train data. Calculate the accuracy on test data. If the model is not working well, fine tune the model. Fine tune it to a place where you have the equal accuracy on train and test data. If the accuracy is exactly matching, then only finalize. For example, accuracy on the train data is 85. Accuracy on the test data is 84. Go to the second configuration. This time you take first 8 parts, last 1 part, which will be like 90% of the data. First 8 pieces, first 80%, last 10%. That will be your train data. Now change the test data to the 9th piece. This will be 10%. That is the test data. Build model M2. This is a different model. Fine tune it for this data. Maybe the accuracy finally after 2-3 iterations in this M2, maybe 86% is the train data accuracy, 86% is the test data accuracy. M3, M4 and so on. Keep on doing it. Change the test data. By the time you come to the 10th iteration, last 90% will be your train data. First 10% will be your test data. Again build a model. 10 models we are building. Again build a model. Fine tune it for this combo. Maybe 85 and 85 is the final model. Take the average of all these, either train or test, because both of them are same. Take the average of all this. If that comes out to be, let's say 86%, then I can put a stamp on it. I can say by using tenfold cross validation, a generalized name will be k-fold cross validation if you are making it into k pieces. In general, people do tenfold cross validation. After doing tenfold cross validation, I can very confidently say 86% is the accuracy and it can validate on any type of data. We tested with all type of test data, isn't it? All type of test combos. Okay. That means any model that is having less than 86% accuracy in this particular example that I'm giving can be classified as underfitted model. Any model that is having more than 85% accuracy, 86, maybe 1 or 2% is fine. Let's say, but if I'm saying 95% accuracy, I got my model, then that will be overfitted model for this data. This is known as tenfold cross validation. It is like the serious cross validation, especially in cases where you want to give extra assurity that my model is working pretty well. My model, the accuracy that I'm getting out of the model is absolutely fine. If you want to give that assurity, then you can use this tenfold validation to prove it. It is not used in all the scenarios, but this is also an option. We don't need to do this manually. There is a package which is k-fold cross validation package is there. So what we need to do is we just need to mention this tree object decision tree classifier. We don't need to give any max depth or any parameters. Automatically fine tuning will happen. K-fold n split equal to 10. If you say n split equal to 10, that becomes 10-fold cross validation. Every model will be built. You will get train accuracy, test accuracy, etc., etc., and you will get the overall average as well. Yes, some models inside this 10 will be overfitted. Some models will be underfitted. The beauty is overall average is what we are looking at. Maybe few models are overfitted, 90%. Okay, few models are underfitted as well, 84%. Okay, if you take the overall average of all of these, it is giving out to be 87. So 87, 88 is the range that I can confidently say my model will give me this much accuracy. This data has, in this particular case, 87 or 88 or 86, 87, 88. That is the range for the perfect accuracy for this model. That is known as 10-fold cross validation. In general, we can also do k-fold cross validation, break it into 20 pieces, break it into 5 pieces. We can do any type, but the most famous one is by default, people tend to use 10-fold cross validation. Okay. This was a question, I think in the first or second session, somebody was asking about this, about the k-fold or 10-fold cross validation. Is that clear now? How k 10-fold cross validation is done? In general, k-fold. All right, go ahead, execute that exercise. These are some of the extra additional validation measures. There is no strict rule that you must do all these validation measures in all the projects that we face in practical scenarios. It is not true. When you join a company, maybe a particular team, they may be looking at the terminology of sensitivity, specificity. Or maybe when you join a different company, they will be asking you precision and recall. Maybe they will be looking at those metrics. Okay. But what really matters is everything is defined from the confusion matrix only. And overfitting and underfitting need to be avoided. Anyway, we have seen that very detailed manner when we are building the model in decision trees. But in general, for any model, we always need to look at train accuracy, test accuracy, make sure that we avoid overfitting and underfitting. Any questions on this? Anybody? Any questions on this section?
So can you repeat that model with use bias underfitted model again?
So overfitting, have you understood?
Yes.
Overfitting models, the different name, there is a second name for them. Let's say this model is overfitted. Technical name is this model is having variance. Okay, that is the name for it. Okay,
Right.
instead of saying like this model is overfitted, sometimes you will hear the term, especially in some academic books, that this model is having variance. From where this name variance is coming from, which means overfitted models have this property. If you change the data, the model is memorizing the data, the model changes, the parameters change. There is a lot of variance in the parameters. That's why they are known as models with a lot of variance. Okay. So if somebody says the model is with a lot of variance, it means they are referring to this model is overfitted. Okay. Now underfitted models. Underfitted models means the models with very less accuracy, isn't it? That means the model is not good. That means the model's estimates are having some bias. There is some inherent bias. That means the model is not good in the beginning itself. That is known as model with a lot of bias. Bias means what? there is an error in the model. Okay, bias means error. So if somebody says this model is biased, that means it is an underfitted model. If somebody says this model is having variance, it means it's an overfitted model. It's just a different terminology rather than different concepts. So variance model means overfitted model. Model with bias means underfitted model. That's it. There is no real concept behind bias and variance or anything. It's just a name. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And the final model that we will be building, neither should be having variance, nor should be having bias. It should be optimal. So finding the optimal value is known as bias variance trade-off. Trade-off means neither high bias nor high variance. Model should be optimal model. That's what is bias variance trade-off.
Right.
Yeah. The ones that is easy to understand in the general terminology that we use is this one. But in the academics, these are the terms that are used. But as soon as you see variance, you connect it to overfitting. Bias, you connect it to underfitting. It should be fine. Okay.
Nice. Thank you.
Any other connected questions from anyone? Let me stop the recording.